I predicted the 49ers to go 11-5 in 2020. It's another prediction I got horribly wrong. The reality is the 49ers went 6-10. However, unlike the Cardinals prediction, unlike the Rams prediction, I really don't have any guilt or shame or feel bad about this one at all because the 49ers had a ton of injuries. Their season was completely ruined by having starters get injured. And it's kind of almost impressive. Impressive is the wrong word, like crazy and shocking how many people got injured right off the bat to start the year. I saw a graphic at one point where there were 30 49ers players, either that were injured currently or had been injured earlier in that year. And you realize an NFL team only has 22 starters between the offense and the defense. So 30 players, that's all your key players hurt, injured, out at some point. Guys like Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, they both tore their ACL. You had George Kittle missed a lot of time. There were so many injuries, including the 49ers starting quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought he had problems when he did play. They were 3-3 win-loss record with him starting. But remember, if your starting quarterback only plays 6 games in a year, that's a big, big problem. On top of that, if you have a bunch of injuries as well, it's a mess. And so last year was a season completely ruined by injuries for the 49ers. And it's pretty funny. I was afraid. I believed if I got my prediction wrong for San Francisco, it was maybe because I didn't predict them to win enough games. I was like, is 11 games too low of a number? I was like, what if they win 12 or 13? And so I just could not have foreseen a season where they won so few games and how that could have happened. And that's something you can't predict. Now, I really thought that some of the offseason moves the 49ers made going into last year were outstanding. They lost 3 key starters from their Super Bowl run. They lost receiver Emmanuel Sanders, D-tackle DeForest Buckner, and left tackle Joe Staley retired. Now, they got a couple of younger, cheaper replacements. They drafted 2 starters in the first round. They drafted D-tackle Javon Kinlaw, 14th overall. They drafted wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, 25th overall. And then they traded for Washington left tackle, a stud Pro Bowler, Trent Williams, which is he was no use to Washington. He was not going to play for them. So it was really a great grab for them. And despite the good moves, I looked at the GM. I went, man, this guy is killing it. And John Lynch, the 49ers GM, I was like, he is making great moves, rebuilding, reloading, getting their team prepared to win. And unfortunately, they just could not overcome the devastating injuries that took place in 2020. Now, I will say they did very well early in the year. People went down early on. People got hurt. But I remember there was a moment where the 49ers were 4-3. Like, winning despite being really shorthanded and outmatched a lot of the time. They beat the Rams. They beat the Patriots. They were 4-3. And I remember thinking, like, man, Kyle Shanahan, what he's doing with the group of guys he's got together. They're competing. They're winning games handily. I was like, man, Kyle Shanahan deserves to be on the watch list for NFL Coach of the Year. Now, it didn't work out. They won 6 games. They kind of fell off a cliff, but I still could not feel better about the 49ers young coach, Kyle Shanahan, pretty clearly. He's like one of the premier coaches in the NFL. And what he does better than anybody, he's a wizard at getting the absolute most out of his players. He just is so good at designing plays and making stuff work and having the way they run the ball in San Francisco with so much motion and so much disguise, so many disguises. Like, it's really impressive, the operation they've got going on in San Francisco. I'm just eternally impressed with Kyle Shanahan. Now, I will say I was not impressed with the 49ers quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. The little he did play last year, he was not great. And this is now 2 seasons in a row where after the year has ended, I walked away feeling like, the 49ers need to have a better quarterback. They lost that Super Bowl where Jimmy Garoppolo was very underwhelming and kind of was carried to a Super Bowl. But a lot of bad quarterbacks get to Super Bowls. Like Rex Grossman got to a Super Bowl. So getting to a Super Bowl is very different than winning a Super Bowl. You can have a great roster that leads you to a Super Bowl. And then, again, Rex Grossman is my prime example. Just because Jimmy Garoppolo got to a Super Bowl does not make him an amazing quarterback. And I can't imagine a lot of 49ers fans don't agree where they're like, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo we want him to be great. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm sure, is somebody that 49ers fans like, please, we want him to be amazing. But he's not delivering. Now, a bright spot on the year last year for San Francisco was that rookie receiver Brandon Ayuk, first-round pick, 25th overall from Arizona State. He led the 49ers in catches, in receiving yards, and in receiving touchdowns. He had 60 catches for 748 yards. He got 5 touchdowns. He also ran for 2 touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk was a home run. Awesome draft pick. Can somebody teach the Eagles and the Patriots how to do what the 49ers just did? They drafted a guy in the first round who became a good receiver. Like, oh, wow, amazing. Kind of crazy. But Brandon Ayuk, man, is awesome. Him and Deebo Samuel are fun to watch when they're both healthy. I think he missed a game because of COVID, too. Now, rookie D tackle Javon Kinlaw had a rookie year full of a lot of progress. I want to read you a quote from Robert Saleh about Javon Kinlaw's first year in the NFL. Robert Saleh, the former defensive coordinator of the 49ers, he said this: with regards to Javon, I think his track this year and what he's been able to do as a rookie has been awesome. It's just my opinion that the second hardest position behind the quarterback is interior defensive lineman. It's a different animal in there. You can't bully people like you have your entire life. You go to high school and college, and you go through high school and college, you're just bigger. You're stronger, you're faster than everybody. Then you get to the NFL, and blocking combinations are different. The speed's different. The power's different. Their pass rushing is different because those guys play a game within a game. So there's a huge learning curve with regards to being able to go in there and play at a very consistent level. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I look at Derek Brown, who went to the Panthers. I look at Javon Kinlaw, like, of course, a defensive lineman who physically has dominated their entire life. They run into a bit of a stone wall and go, oh, this is different. And they have to learn more technique. And you watch a lot of time. Like Aaron Donald's a prime example. He's always out there working with his hands and teaching people what they're doing. And I feel very good about Javon Kinlaw. He just needs time. I think that it was a year of progress. I think it was a great draft pick, actually. And he's working hard. I walked away with Javon Kinlaw. I thought that was a great perspective from Robert Saleh. Like, give it time. It's a huge adjustment to go from high school to college and then suddenly the NFL, where it's just a completely different game. And I've never heard anyone say that before, but I thought that was really, really cool from Robert Saleh. Now, unfortunately, the 49ers defensive coordinator, I said the former defensive coordinator because Robert Saleh left. He got hired as a Jets new head coach. I'm very confident in him. It's a great move for New York. And it stood out to me how hard the 49ers defense fought at the end of the year. Despite playing for nothing but pride, I mean, the season was lost. They were at a horrible record, and they were playing because they're getting paid and because they probably want to put good stuff on film. But Robert Saleh, to his credit, got great play out of his defense down the stretch. Guys were making effort, fighting hard, and losing battles. I mean, I walked away very, very impressed with that 49ers defense. And it really says a lot about Robert Saleh's leadership. He will be, 49er fans should be very upset. I mean, they are losing out on a great coach in San Francisco. Robert Saleh left, and that's going to be a hole left behind him. Now, I want to read a couple questions from the audience. You too can send in questions. Go to patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. Question number 1 is from the Musical Brew. He says, what should the Niners do at quarterback? Personally, I believe they should trade Jimmy G and maybe another pick for Cousins. And the Vikes should move on from Kirk Cousins' limitations. Kirk Cousins is interesting. I'm fine. He did very well with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan elevates literally every quarterback that he has. I mean, he made Matt Ryan into an NFL MVP. So keep your eye. Kyle Shanahan, no matter who his quarterback is, the guy's going to do something well, even if I think he's really elevating Jimmy Garoppolo beyond what he probably is capable of normally with any other coach. And I believe the 49ers need to find an alternative to Jimmy Garoppolo. They need to move on from Jimmy G. The 49ers have a shot at a Super Bowl if they can get good quarterback play. Now, maybe that can come from Jimmy Garoppolo, but I am not confident he can deliver. I've seen enough now where I'm like, Jimmy G is not the answer. 2 years in a row, I felt like this needs to be better and needs to change. And honestly, the guy I would make a move for if I'm San Francisco, there's a cheap contract out there with a guy who plays high-level quarterback play. I mean, this quarterback I'm about to list is the only quarterback, and they've had a lot of quarterbacks play for the Jacksonville Jaguars recently. Gardner Minshew is the only quarterback to win a game in like the last 2 years for Jacksonville. So Gardner Minshew is not flashy, not amazing. I mean, he's flashy with the stupid mullet and the like his shirt's always open and unbuttoned with the hairy like he's very flamboyant. But he's not the most talented quarterback ever. However, what he does is make great decisions. I think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He's certainly much cheaper. If you had Gardner Minshew with Kyle Shanahan and a great roster around him, that's a team that could win a Super Bowl. I really have confidence in that. If I'm the 49ers, I am on the phone saying, hey, how can we get Gardner Minshew in our building? But that's just me. I understand. I'm like, I really, really believe strongly in Gardner Minshew, probably more than a lot of people. But I think the 49ers need to act with desperation and find a solution and find somebody other than Jimmy Garoppolo to be their quarterback moving forward. Dylan writes in, he says, do you still believe that George Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL? I remember last year you talking about all the teams in the division needing someone to guard him specifically. Is Kelce taking over that number one spot? So no, George Kittle is still the best tight end in the NFL. I know that his numbers went down, but remember he was hurt last year, missed a couple games, and he had backup quarterbacks throwing him the ball. So I don't know. Then also remember, Travis Kelce is a receiving tight end. George Kittle does everything. He can run, he can catch, and he can block. George Kittle is maybe the best blocking tight end in the NFL. On top of the fact you can't guard him, he's great after the catch, he catches everything. George Kittle is easily the best all-around tight end in the NFL, and I don't understand how that's not widely accepted. Travis Kelce's amazing. He's a glorified receiver. He's a receiver that's slow that has linebackers match up on him. So Travis Kelce's awesome, the guy in Kansas City. But George Kittle, the San Francisco 49ers tight end, that is the best tight end in the entire NFL. I will die on that hill. I'm not a 49er fan, but I watched the tape. George Kittle's amazing. Final question for the 49ers. Michael writes in, he says, congrats on the engagement, Zach. It's been awesome to hear how much your personal and professional life has grown since I started listening to the podcast a couple of seasons ago. My question is about the 49ers quarterback group. We've locked in Josh Rosen and Jimmy G, but Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard are pending free agents. Which would you rather have as your backup, and where would you like to see them sign? Where would you like to see them go, basically? You think either of CJ Beathard or Jimmy or Nick Mullins is a capable starter? So I would take Nick Mullins over CJ Beathard. Neither one of them is a starting quarterback in the NFL. Nick Mullins, however, is an outstanding backup. He's like the perfect backup where he can come in for a few games, keep your season alive, but he should never play more than a couple games a year. Last year, he basically became the 49ers starting quarterback. That's not a position that Nick Mullins should ever be in. He's just too limited to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But if I'm an NFL team and I'm like, I can have Nick Mullins potentially come in and keep my season afloat if my quarterback was banged up a little bit, that's very encouraging. But if Nick Mullins ever plays more than like 3 games a year, you're in trouble. But again, he's a backup. Like, you shouldn't expect your backup quarterback to be your starting quarterback. It's the wrong expectation to put on a guy. So I think Nick Mullins, I maintain he's one of the better backups in the entire NFL.